Hello and welcome to another What Sold on eBay video. We're going to go over some items that sold in our eBay charity shop. There's going to be lots of great information here, so you want to stay tuned all the way to the very end because we have some very special deep dives in some of these items, and you might not know about some of these items. And I go over a brief little history of little kind of things to look out for, so you definitely want to watch to the very end. If you're not subscribed and you like to watch stuff about eBay and different things to sell, definitely go down there and consider clicking the like button and subscribing. Now let's get right into it. First up, we have this vintage Star Wars lot of 35 figures. Now, these are the vintage Kenner line from the 80s, and some of you might have seen these before, and some of you may have not. These are the older kind of vintage figures, and how you can usually tell by looking at these figures is, the legs and the arms bend. There's not a lot of articulation. They say Hong Kong usually on the legs, and they overall look like, the kind of like the same looking figures as far as like the way they kind of stand up, as you can see there. And a lot of these vintage ones are going to have some wear. Now, condition is going to be everything when you're dealing with Star Wars vintage figures. The better the condition, the better and higher the money you're going to get. So like an average figure that's maybe beat up and used is going to be anywhere between maybe $5 and $12. But if you have a mint condition figure, especially with its authentic weapon, it can go for $15, $20, $35, $45, $50 on up, depending on condition, because there are people that do grade these. But this was a nice collection here of 35 figures. This sold for a total of $228, and it did come with the little vinyl case. The vinyl case is not going to add a bunch of money to the lot. It's usually the different figures. Now, there was a whole run of these figures from 1977 to around 1985, 1986. The 85 and 86 figures are called Power of the Force, and those are the very sought after figures because at the end of the line, they didn't make too many of them, and there's a whole list of those figures. I want to say there's maybe like 16 or 18 figures or something like that of that particular line. None of them are here, as you can see, though we can see there's some weapons, and we're going to talk about Star Wars vintage weapons later in the video, so you definitely want to watch to that. But anyways, this was a great sale out of Eureka, so congratulations, Deb and Haley. As we can see here, we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into some of the Star Wars stuff. There's a lot of different prices and things, so if you want to check out some of the prices that go back 12 years, definitely check out Worth Point for that for sure. Next up, we have this Nike Air. These are women's special field Air Force Ones. As we can see here, this is desert okra wheat, as you can see here. There's actually a kind of interesting story behind these, and I wish I could say this actually came from a celebrity, and I was told specifically that I could not say who the celebrity was. I know who the celebrity is, and I will say, the only thing I will say, it was from a famous singer. That's the only thing I'm going to say. And it would have been another thing to be saying like who it was. It would have added a lot of value, especially if we would have got a certificate of authenticity, et cetera, et cetera. But this particular singer did not want to be known for donating these items because I don't know what the story was with that. She just wanted to keep her no, I kind of I narrowed it down a little bit, didn't I? Anyways, if these would have went for a lot more if we were able to disclose that. But anyways, I thought it was a fun kind of thing. Anyways, I want to say we took a best offer for around $50 for these things. So whoever got these got a really good deal. I did price these really high, just from seeing other comps and stuff like that. Size is going to be everything when it comes to shoes. Sometimes some sizes are going to sell lower than others. I did try to do the high-low theory on this, and we still got some money for these shoes, but someone got a good deal for sure. Next up is this Funko Pop. This is Zero from Nightmare Before Christmas. Disney Pops actually do very well, so if you see Disney Pops and the price is right, definitely pick them up. They retail for about $10, but sometimes the prices fluctuate. Kind of pops in general over the last 2 or 3 years have really overinflated and the market is heavily saturated. So just don't get caught up in thinking that every pop is going to be worth more than $10. Sometimes they're even worth less than that. I've seen pops in the 99-cent store here locally in California over the last 2 years. So that should tell you a little bit something about what's going on with the world of Funko Pops. But anyways, this one sold for $17.99. They're very easy to look up. There's going to be a name and a number on each box. Just look up the name, look up the number, and you'll be able to see how much it is on eBay. Check out comps because there are very special limited edition ones that you can only get in certain conventions, especially the San Diego Comic-Con. So speaking of San Diego Comic-Con, the ones you really need to look out for are the San Diego Comic-Con logo stickers. As you can see here, if you see a sticker on the box, as you can see the little window there, if you see a round sticker on any Funko Pop, definitely take another look because that means it's going to be either a chase or a special edition. You want to take a closer look at this. But if you ever see any of the 2013 Comic-Con Pops, some of those go for crazy money. As you can see here, in 2017, this Dumbo Pop sold for a record $10,000, and there's a lot of them like this that go in between 1,000 and 2,000 in that era, 2012, 2013, and 2014. Even some in 2015 went for some good money. So you definitely want to look out for these particular ones with the stickers on them. Next up, we have this Morgan Lucas. This is a 2011 Geico 124 scale dragster. This is a die-cast car. This isn't meant to play with. This is meant to be kind of like a display piece. So it's kind of like a higher end kind of die-cast car. As you can see here, it's very high detailed. There's probably about 100 pieces that go in this particular thing. As you can see here, it's sitting very nicely in its box, and it is limited edition. As you can see, this one is number 405, which I thought was really interesting that, you know, they put numbers on these particular ones. Some of these you might actually find the boxes to be signed by the actual driver, or sometimes the actual cars are signed by the driver. So you kind of want to look at those. Now, does that add a bunch more value to the actual diecast? No, and in some cases it actually lessens the value of the car if someone signs it and things, as hard as that is to believe that is the case in some certain situations. So anyways, if you ever see these, if these long boxes, they say NHRA, and you have to just take a look at them. Some of them have barcodes, so they're easily scannable on eBay or Amazon. You can definitely check them out. Just make sure there's no broken pieces. Some of these more intricate die-cast cars, they easily break, so you definitely want to check these out if you're going to spend $50 on something like this, if you're at an estate sale especially. And so this sold for a total of $119, so there's some good money in these 124 scale die-cast dragsters, so definitely keep an eye out for those. Next up, speaking of stars, we have a 1996 Star Wars Dawn Post plastic helmet, and this is the Emperor's Royal Guard, as we can see here in the famous red helmet. Now, this doesn't have the cape and everything, but this is great for Halloween costume or kind of convention. This is actually a really cool piece, and Dawn Post, for those that don't know, is a very well known Halloween mask maker. As you can see here, Dawn Post. So if you ever see Dawn Post on any kind of helmet or mask or anything like that, it's definitely worth picking up if the price is right. As you can see here, this is from 1996 Lucasfilm Limited. That's Star Wars stuff, as we can see here. Now, I did take a best offer for about $85 on this, and this thing was kind of a little bit of a pain to ship because it's huge. It was a big box. It is very light, so it's not going to cost a lot of money, but basically the square footage is actually pretty big. So if you're ever going to ship this kind of stuff, definitely consider having a box for it pre-hand and kind of weighing it and all that kind of stuff, so you really know what you're shipping, because you can get really caught up in losing money on shipping on these particular things. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Next up, we have this vintage 1958 through 1962 Barbie lot. As we can see here, we got Barbie and Midge, and you know, there's a lot to be said about these different Barbie dolls. Sometimes the hairs come out. There's one thing I wanted to speak about, because you might ask yourself, well, how do I know if it's a vintage Barbie doll, because there's lots of reprints out there? Well, if you flip them over and you look at the bottom of their feet, some of the vintage ones will say Japan on the feet because they were made in Japan. You know, a lot of the newer stuff is made in China, made in Hong Kong. These particular older pieces were made in Japan, as we can see here. Now, kind of, I don't know what's going on with Midge there. But anyways, one of the kind of the things that I want to tell you about these that just, oh goodness, that, you know, one of the things is if you ever come across these old Barbie dolls, don't have the notion of moving the arms or moving the legs, because the plastics that were used making these particular figures are very brittle. Sometimes they'll break. I had a $100 Barbie figure come in through one time, and I moved the leg to kind of clean it, and it broke. So I'm just saying, as kind of a word of caution, if you ever come across vintage Barbies, don't try to move the legs, don't try to move the arms, just keep them as is and sell them as is, and you'll be totally safe with those. Anyways, these sold for a total of $62.89, which I kind of think is a little bit of a good deal. Some of the clothes and accessories were kind of beat up, as we can see here. And by the way, that actually is a good kind of point to mention is some of the clothes actually go for a lot more than the figures, especially if they're in good condition. As you can see here, these are kind of grimy and a little dirty, and especially the faces, as you can see there. Some of those cases, those vinyl cases, actually go for pretty good money if you can find them in good condition. So just keep an eye out for this kind of stuff. Whoever bought this, I think, got a decent deal, especially with all the different things that are going on here, the case, the figures, and the clothes. So, you know, definitely keep an eye out for that stuff. Next up, we have this Gibson mandolin. It's kind of like a mix between a guitar and a violin. And as you can see here, this is a vintage one. As you can see, Gibson is a very well-known company. This sold for a total of $714. Now, I think this actual thing was returned back to us because it had a undisclosed crack in the side. So you kind of want to watch out for that kind of stuff. And I don't know if I can actually see it in here. But anyways, you want to, when you look at these kind of older antique guitars, you want to make sure there's no cracks in the sides, in the back, on the fret, on the head, and all those different things, because you want to disclose all that, because that can actually mess up the sound when you're trying to do these as a musician. And some of these older vintage mandolins, they have really good sounds, especially if you can find an older one. Anyways, so this was actually a really, really good sale. Even though it was returned, I think we did flip it back around and got the same amount of money for it. So let's actually take a little bit of a deep dive into Worth Point. And as we can see here, there's some pretty crazy 30s and 40s mandolins that go for crazy, crazy money. They're kind of like a rare guitar, and they've probably produced maybe a tenth of these that they had for just regular guitars. And Gibson is probably like the cream of the crop when it comes to guitars. So if you ever find a Gibson guitar, an old one, a Gibson, geez, anything Gibson, look them up. Some of them go for thousands of dollars, so just kind of keep an eye out for that. They kind of have, Gibson is very much known for these starburst kind of patterns, as you can see here, or sunburst, I should say. And so definitely look out for that. Usually Gibsons will say Gibson on the head or the neck or somewhere like there. So they're really easy to kind of look up too. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Next up, we have this Coach signature brown leather canvas tote. And I just kind of wanted to put this in here to show you that, you know, even though this had a little bit of wear, it still sold for $50. Coach purses and handbags don't really go for as much as they used to back in maybe 10 years ago. They've kind of lost a lot of their luster with, there's a lot of outlet stores and there's a lot of discount places. And I think that's where, you know, these kind of brands, they lose their value, like Louis Vuitton and stuff like that. You know, they don't have discount stores and closeout stores. And if they do, they're very minimal of what they put out. Sometimes, you know, those higher end places will actually destroy bags, you know, to keep the brand's name and not to liquidate it, because it's kind of like, you know, lowering the cost of the brands. Anyways, you know, there are some still fake Coach purses out there. They're not as manufactured anymore in mass as they did maybe 10 years ago, but you kind of want to look out for this stuff. So anytime you get a brand new one or something, you want to definitely, you know, compare it to other ones on the internet. So anyways, once again, I'm Chris, the Thrift Shop Hustler. If you enjoyed this video, definitely go down there, click the like button, and we'll see you next time. Take care.